Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakwadash, the born and spent the apostles and elders at Greatmillstone who rule well, and if to us is 100% truth. Much peace and blessings be unto you, hopeful. Let those of us not this word of all truth and sincerity. To all you, I do say Shalom. I'll be coming in with a quick video I entitle, Does the Lord Use the Heathen to Chastise the Nation of Israel, Yashar Allah? And, basically, the point is, but to prove all things, we should nonetheless use the scriptures to prove this concept, right? This is how we're able to properly articulate an argument. Right, and I don't mean an argument in the back and forth sense between you and somebody else. Talking about, you suck. No, you suck. No. We're talking about, secondary definition. Right. So about 2 semesters ago, since I'm in school, I took a course in English. Something I forget what it's called, English composition probably. And in the free OER that was assigned to the class. OER is an abbreviation for Online Electronic Resource. I forget what chapter specifically it was. Perhaps it was in the introduction. But it did make the mention how an argument is like an essay, right? You have a thesis, right? A claim, a point. Like chicken nuggets are good. And, the body of said paragraph, the body, the evidence to this claim, are like bullet points, like this is why, and then bullet point, right? So, like chicken nuggets are good because, their flavor, that's the point, right? Same thing with this. So, the thesis of this lesson today is, does the Lord use the heathen? Yes. And here's why. And you have precepts listed down, that go into that to prove the point. Because people out here, they're ignorant. They claim they read the scriptures, but they really don't. And also people that don't know, they are to be edified. And that is the point of a lesson, to teach and edify. Right, feeding knowledge. But, I want to go into the book of Isaiah, the 10th chapter, verse 5. And this is in the King James Version translation, which is a standard issue that we've been assigned, right? We are commanded to, rely solely on this one, right? King James Version, the KJV for short. And, that's, taught by the apostles and elders at Greatmillstone and the men on down. But is that to say that you can't, delve into, another translation? By all means, the other apostle Gabar, made that mention. We can do that. We could, right? And see, the purpose of a contemporary translation, contemporary meaning, relating to like, the present, right? Basically modern. It is to aid the average English reader in interpreting the context of what's being written, because basically to help them understand. Because the thing about the KJV is that it uses archaic terminology, archaic meaning ancient, right? But as the history scholars do attribute it still is a part of modern English, which we are currently speaking, but it's like a more outdated version, like an early modern English, if you will, the 1600s, right? And we've come a long way, syntax has evolved, right? What's it called? Terminology. We don't use terms like archaic. We just say old, right? We don't say thou or thee. We just say you, right? Like George Washington, I believe it was saying you, right? Which in Hebrew is atha, right? Atha. What's it called? And the reason why we really don't delve into other translations is because, you know, the simple fact that they do omit precepts only found in the KJV. But again, they also are the understanding, right? They are there to help, but you know, it's like what's it called? Counterintuitive. You know, it does mar the understanding. And the KJV, you know, looking into its history, the translators that translated from the Hebrew, you know, try their best to preserve the understanding when, you know, using the English, right? So this is why it's a standard issue, because it's more closely aligned to the Hebrew. Though, as the apostles have made mention, you know, there are certain verses which just sound way better in Hebrew, and that's why we are taught, you know, to delve into the Hebrew, right? Delve into the Greek, right? And Hebrew really is the paleo meaning Greek for ancient Hebrew, which, you know, other titles could be Old Hebrew, right? Biblical Hebrew. Lashon Kodash. Lashawan Kodash. Lashawan meaning tongue, Kodash meaning holy. And I know sometimes wonky in English, tongue holy, but it makes sense in the Hebrew. You know, it's like basically saying holy tongue, but that's just the, you know, syntactic structure. Syntax basically being good sentence flow, right? So, like in English, you know, I think we're like subject verb order, SVO. So, you know, whereas, you know, in Spanish it would be different. Same thing in Hebrew. Like an example could be between English and Spanish, of course. The White House. In English, the White House, but in Spanish it's La Casa Blanca, right? La Casa Blanca. Which, if you were doing a direct translation from the Spanish to the English, the Casa Blanca would be the house white. The house white. Oh, look at the house white. You know, it makes no sense, but it does in Spanish, right? Another can be in Spanish, el perro grande, right? Which a direct translation in English would be the dinosaur big. Like, I mean, it does kind of sound, you know, it does kind of make sense with a bit of tone, like, the dinosaur big, right? You know, like in, you know, more casual, you know, slang English, or vernacular English, you know, I'm not sure what a better choice of word would be. Doesn't matter. The point is, you know, different orders. So, with the Hebrew, Lashawan Kodash, English, tongue holy, right? Or holy tongue. Alright, but what's it called? They went the Greek, the koine, you know, for a bit of backdrop, and it's a dialect that was spoken. Actually, I wouldn't say dialect because dialects might be more regional, but we have dialects of English here and there. You know, slang is regional as well, right? Like in California, they use clutch. In the East Coast, they use your, right? More so, it was the Greek of that time was spoken. You know, koine is like the common language, right? Common Greek, right? It was the lingua franca, meaning, you know, the language of the land, really, the language spoken after the known world at the world of the time. Can't even speak right now. You know, the same way the English is a lingua franca because it's the global language, it's the international language. And yeah, it started off as a classical, you know, then it went to Koine, and then it became Byzantine Greek. Which, you know, Koine, scholars, before they found out that Koine was a common, you know, like language spoken of, you know, throughout its time, they just believed it was like its own dialect, like its own Greek. They called it New Testament Greek, and they came up with the point that the apostles, you know, used kind of crappy Greek to be able to get, you know, to the believers, which, you know, in essence is being simple. Now, that is a part of our culture, to be simple, right? But no, it was dialect. It was a language that they spoke at the time. the version of the language they spoke at the time. Same thing with, you know, English. You know, we discovered that, you know, this is you know, early modern English. Before that, you had Old English. Old English is nothing compared to what we speak right now. You know, how would it be making sense to them, and they wouldn't be to us either. You know, you see these videos where people, speak Old English. You could kind of hear some, nickels and bits, but you can't interpret what they're saying, right? It's like watching a video on YouTube talking about how English sounds like to non-native English speakers. That's how it sounds like. I digress. Back to the point, however. Isaiah the 10th chapter, verse 5. O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in your hand is mine indignation. Right. So this is the Lord speaking, and his target is Assyria. He's speaking to Assyria, saying, you are the rod of my anger. The staff and the rod, staff, they're interchangeable, right? Like a big pole, a big scepter, right? It says, and the staff in your hand is mine indignation. Staff means their weaponry, Assyria's weaponry, to bring about destruction, be able to afflict others, right? Their weaponry in their hand is my indignation. It's the Lord's indignation. Indignation in the English Google definition. Let me pull it out. It means anger or annoyance provoked by what is perceived as unfair treatment. Right, and yeah, the Lord is angry. He is annoyed. And he's provoked by what is perceived as unfair treatment. What does that sound like? Zechariah, the first chapter, verse 15. That came to mind. Right, bear with me. 1 and 15. And I am very sore displeased with the heathen, right? Assyria, that's a heathen nation, that are at ease, for I was but a little displeased, and they held forward the affliction. Affliction on whom? Our people, right? And it's not only Assyria, which Isaiah 10 and 5, the modern interpretation you could apply to Esau, Edom, right? It's not only Esau, all nations, man. They've had a part in beating us to flip down. We read about that in the book of Judges, right? We'll have the same areas deliverers to deliver our people, because, it really goes their fault. They done messed up, and yeah, here what's it called? They would always start out with a new generation and not the Lord. They were wicked, right? And then the Lord would, have them be oppressed, and in their captivity, they would remember the Lord. And that reminds me of Baruch, right? In the land of captivity, so they shall remember the Lord, right? And then deliver, have the people kick butt, and now they're on top again, right? But I digress back. Yeah. Oh, Assyria, the Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hands, my indignation. Now I want to read the same verse, but in a different translation. So I'm gonna pull out the blue letter application, and I guess I'm using the NLT. It reads, "What sorrow awaits Assyria, the rod of my anger." Now, one thing I've noticed when watching the videos of the men of the Lord, when they, delve into, like a news report, and it's about somebody that got slew. And this person that got slew, was slew by this, murderer. And what the men of the Lord always emphasized, it's that the murderer is just as wicked as the person that got slew, but again, it's on the Lord's timing. So the Lord had it for this person to, bring about a judgment. But does that mean that they're just? No. Murder, they still got blood on their hands, and they're still out here doing mischievous deeds. The Lord's gonna take them out. In His own time. So, yeah, Assyria, they got judged, and they're gonna get judged again, right? Esau, got messed up. He's gonna get messed up again, right? Like, what's it called? They shall build, but I will throw down, right? What's it called? They fell in 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire, which that was Esau's pride and joy, right? And then the Eastern, which became known as the Byzantine Empire. Really, it's if you put yourself in their shoes, they would attribute themselves to the Romans, excuse me. But Esau's history scholars, do distinguish both empires, lest they be confused with each other, by way of entitling it the Byzantine Empire instead of just Eastern Roman Empire. And that's why when you hear the fall of Rome, the fall of the Roman Empire, really they mean the Western, right? The keyword is Western. But you wouldn't understand it had you not learned history. If I didn't make mention, it's a vapor inhaler stick. It's non-medicated soothing vapor. It does say use as often as needed. Don't buy into that, right? Really, it does irritate the nasal lining. Take it in moderation, which the scriptures do emphasize take things in moderation, right? Hey, all things are lawful, but not expedient, roughly paraphrase. Yeah. So, I will assume the run my anger. Yeah, what's it called? O Esau, who is to be judged. You are the rod of my anger. Your weaponry, your missiles, another example of staff can be the freaking, what's it called? Jabs for the whole syphilis experiment known as Tuskegee experiment, right? Esau was out here deceiving the masses, talking about, hey, if you take this, then you're gonna be contributing and trying to combat syphilis or whatever. So, no, I ain't do crap. But it took some souls out. It took some souls back to the spirit realm. That's an example of staff in their hand being the Lord's in the nation. Because we know a person that dies is not right, is not innocent. They're guilty. The wages of sin is death. Right? I remember when I was going to a lesson, going into a population that died. And I wouldn't say, not population, more like a group of people that got healed. So lucky for that, bad choice of words, but what's it called? He made the mention how they weren't innocent. In Ezekiel 18:4, I believe it was. He pulled out. Make the mention how the soul that sinneth, it shall die. So you try and tell me otherwise, man. If you try, all right, yeah. Ezekiel 18:4. Okay. Behold, all souls are mine. As the soul of the Father, so also the soul of the Son is mine. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. Right? So, it's judgment. Right? Yeah, so Esau's going to be judged, and just as we are. Continuing on, it does make the mention, I will send them against an hypocritical nation and against the people of my wrath. Right. Who is that people? Our people, man. They out here, what's it called? Tap dancing, lollygagging out here, what's it called? Being prideful and shy. What's it called? Being hypocritical. You have the Pharisees doing that shy, man. They out here being, what's it called? Talking about, they're better than us, and better than everybody. And that's where Yahweh Shai had to get on them. And he also made the mention, what's it called? And don't be hypocrites, man, basically. Don't be hypocritical. You judging, brother for the thing you're doing, man. You going off. But Yahweh Shai never said, don't judge, what's it called? He just said, don't judge if you're doing the same shite. But people, misinterpret that, and now all of a sudden it's talking about only God can judge me, and that's why Tupac, man, Tupac was okay. The video feed cut off, not because of storage shortage, just because it was acting up. But I had made them mention how Tupac Shakur, right? This guy was all about only God can judge me now. Really, and make you judge, man. So long as individual is not doing the same crap you're doing, right? Self-examination is the key. But I digress. It reads, against the people of my wrath will I give them a charge. A charge is a command. So the Lord is commanding, Esau, though Esau don't know it, get down to people, man. And really Esau's mentality is to, what's it called? Get back to birthright. But you ain't getting shy, bro. Like, there's a thing called predestination, man. Yeah, SpongeBob out here talking about imagination. Yeah, well, think about predestination. It's a bit of, it's a bit too hard for you to understand. You out here calling it Calvinism, screw John Calvin, man. John Calvin ain't shy, he ain't got nothing on us, man. Talking about, oh, that's a Calvinistic, interpretation, mofo. This guy, hey, that guy should be lucky the Lord gave him that understanding. Yeah, predestination is a freaking thing, bro. What's it called? I hear bugging talking about, no, it's not, no, it's not. Same people out here talking about religion is not mentioned in the scriptures. Read James, the 1st chapter, bro. What's it called? I'm gonna put you on predestination. Predestinate occurs in 2 verses in the KJV. How about that for some evidence? Right, so Romans 8:29. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate, to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the first one among many brethren. What's it called? Also in Ephesians, in the 1st chapter, verse 5. Having predestinated us. All right, hold up. First of all, what does predestinate mean? Now, when you think about destiny is like the life. It's like the purpose of your life. Now you add pre, it already, implies beforehand. So let's take a look. Predestined. Of God destined someone for a particular fate or purpose. But look now, what does destined mean? Intend or choose someone or something for a particular purpose or end. Now, this reminds me all too familiar with the precept I entitled, known as Hebrews 10:31. Fearful it is falling into the hands of living power. Now when we look to that word hand, it goes back to the Greek word ched, not ched. That spitting sound, is Hebrew, but in with the cha letter, but in the Greek, you have the key, it's key. So ched, not ched, it's ched. I think I correct myself on that. I'm reading I would say more outdated, textbook entitled How to Read New Testament Greek, and it's written by somebody named Hudson. I did research on him before, and he's like a bigwig for his time. I forget, some kind of scholar, I believe, but it did explain that it's supposed to be cade, right? Key, epsilon, iota, and rho. All together would be cade. What's it called? Hebrews 10:31. Yeah, and you look into the Allen biblical usage in the blue letter for the word Cade. What does it say? I'm gonna pull it out. So bear with me. You know, I wanna do this in a hasty, sense. Speedy time manner. What do you call it? Okay. Hands in the interlinear / concordance for the word hand. God damn it. Jeez. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. See, this thing is already acting up. I'm trying to do this speedily. Alright. Cade. Okay. Definition 2. D. In determining and controlling the destinies of men. I'm not sure you could see it. In determining and controlling the destinies of men. Also, the precept that I wanted to pull out after this was Proverbs 20 and 24. See, now you're starting to see how they both tie together. It is nonetheless, connected like a jigsaw puzzle. You got one piece, another piece, and they somehow intersect. They all connect, right? And that's what what's it called? Let there be precept, though. One precept here a little, and there a little. You're not nitpicking. That's what Esau calls I think it's a straw man fallacy, some rhetorical fallacy. It's not a fallacy. It's also the truth. It's you would say interconnected truth, a collective, right? A collective is when you have all these forces and you all say the same thing, in agreement. And then again, it makes sense because again, what's it called? The Spirit of the Lord to be able to, what's it called? Say the things, what's it called? Spoken, and they all. Okay, so I'll continue on Isaiah the 10th chapter, verse 6. It doth read, I will send up against an hypocritical nation, against the people of my wrath, will I give them a charge, to take the spoil and to take the prey, and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. Right? Howbeit, he meaneth not so, neither doth his heart think so. But it is in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few. Now, delving into the NLT translation of said verses, I will bring it out in the blue letter. Bear with me, Bukasha. It doth read for better understanding. I am sending Assyria against a godless nation, against the people with whom I am angry. Assyria will plunder them, trampling them like dirt beneath his feet. But the king of Assyria will not understand that he is my tool. His mind does not work that way. His plan is simply to destroy, to cut down nations after nation. He does not know that he is the Lord's tool, a vessel, bring about destruction. Henceforth, why else would it say that the staff in their hand is minding the nation? Because he is their tool, he is using them, he's manipulating them. Right? This reminds me of yeah, I tried the precept on the plot. Proverbs 20 and 24. I'll pull that out. Okay, so. Okay. Next is that. Bingo. Man's going is of the Lord. In all caps, right? I'm speaking on behalf of Yahweh. How can a man then understand his own way? Hold up, is this thing messed up? No, that's right. Right? Proverbs 21 and 1 states, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. He turneth it whithersoever he go. Now, king really can mean anybody besides the king, but the point there is to emphasize how even at the top, the top leadership position, And, it says social root, the Lord's in control. And that reminds me of Daniel, the 4th chapter, verse 17. He ruleth in the kingdom of men. Will be kingdoms, right? He's not only in control of, the American government, right? He's in control of, Russia. He's in control of, all these other groups, right? He's got their minds in his hand. And why? Because really, heart means, go back to the Hebrew word, la, meaning mind. That is where the spirit resides, the consciousness, the mind. You have all these freaking, philosophers out here, all freaking bugging now, talking about, what is the mind? What is the conscience? Mofo, you are the consciousness, the soul, spirit, all interchangeable. It's trapped within the brain. And brain, really, when it says, it's like water. He changes it whithersoever he go. Well, historically speaking, what has man been known to do? Move the water by way of pipes, aqueducts. Right, like in ancient China, you were able to direct the path of the water, you were able to water the crops. Well, what do you mean, brain? We're talking about pipes. Well, I want to school you on some goddamn science. And goddamn as an expression sense, not goddamn as in forsaken. Though a majority of science is forsaken. It's bugged out. But in this sense, in this context, it means expression. It's expression for the gravity, the seriousness I'm intending. Let me search it up. How much water does the brain hold? Okay. The human brain, and this is the AI overview. The human brain is composed of approximately 73% to 80% water, making hydration crucial for optimal cognitive function, mood, and concentration, as even mild dehydration can impair attention, memory, and information processing by disrupting neurotransmitter function and nerve signaling, according to www, which if you know what that means World Wide Web, right? That's for another topic. .usgs.gov for government, medical news today, and community neuroscience services, respectively. Right? You want a depiction, an illustration? Look at all these. Yeah. So, there's no wonder as to why 2nd Ezra the 15th chapter made the flipping freaking mention. The words that are written therein are faithful and true. True. Keep that in goddamn mind. This is true. This is legit. This is real. This is real. I'm not here, what's it called? I want to punch the freaking wall, man. I want to punch the freaking wall. Emphasize how literal this can get. Right? This ain't no freaking figment. This ain't no goddamn fad. No freaking fairy tale, man. People with mofos out talking about, well, that's a fairy tale. That's a fairy tale. Well, whoso despite of the word shall be destroyed, and also let them with incredulity, die of disbelief, man. It's really written there. Like it's written there. Now, how can you weigh is your judgment, and ye shall believe it? Henceforth, time after, wisdom of Solomon, the 7th chapter, no, 5th chapter, right? 3rd chapter. Fact check this right quick. It's always good to be sharp, but then again, as much information as you gain, you tend to lose some of the old one, so you always just want to keep on recirculating like blood. Hell, this is the blood. This is lifeline right here, bro. Living waters. Hell, blood is a liquid. Blood contains water. What's it called? Blood is life, as the scriptures say. So there's a bit of analogy right there. Analogy. An analogy is like an example, to use. The same way a parable works, I wish I use parables to break down a certain, what's it called? Point. A parable is like a story though, but they're both examples. Anyways, jeez, what the freak was that? Okay, there. Right. All right, so this is a book of wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter. Yeah. Now, the point still applies. It says, "And they repenting and groaning for anguish of spirits say within themselves, this was he whom we had sometimes in derision and a proverb of reproach. We fools accounted his life madness and his end to be without honor." Right? We worried ourselves in a way of wickedness and destruction. Yet we have gone through deserts where there lay no way. But as for the way of the Lord, we have not known it. Right? Where is the way of the Lord found? Right? You know? Yeah, I said he was a way. But you know, his way are the words. And where are the words found? I'm pretty sure right here. You know? Right? And he would often emphasize, he is here to speak on behalf of him who sent him, which is Yahweh, the Heavenly Father. And the Father spoke through his prophets to give us the OT. So you can't get this, man. I don't know what's wrong with you. You out here, what's it called? You cooked. You're cooked. And you will be cooked, literally, because we know thermonuclear fire is coming. Right. There is a priest I'm going to pull out. I'm going to go back to Isaiah, the 10th chapter. Temporarily. Salakia. Howbeit he meaneth not so, neither doth his heart think so, but it is in his heart that the swing cut off, nations off you. Yeah, now I remember what I wanted to pull out with this. Going to Proverbs 1 and 24 and Proverbs 21, and one going to how the Lord is in control of all things. I wanted to pull out something I was meditating on, a while ago, and it's about René Descartes, a French philosopher, an Edomite philosopher. As most philosophers are out here like stupid as hell, They have a few good points, but most of it's just like, main bull crap. But for a bit of backdrop on him, he was a French philosopher, scientist, and mathematician who was often called the father of modern philosophy. He is credited with establishing a philosophical framework for the natural sciences and applying scientific method to philosophical questions. Descartes is known for his famous phrase, "Cogito ergo sum," I think, therefore I am, which he asserted as a primary certainty for his philosophy. Now, I was delving into that right a while ago. I wanted to speak on that behalf. Right? Imagine this. What if everything you experience, your body, the world, other people is fake? What if your mind were kept alive somehow and fed sensations that feel real, even though nothing you perceive actually exists as you think it does? He used examples like dreaming or an evil deceiver, later compared to a brain in a vat. The point was this: your senses can't fool you. If your senses can't fool you, you cannot be 100% certain about the physical world. But even if everything is fake, you are still thinking, and you are thinking you must exist. That leads to this famous conclusion: I think, therefore I am. But then I wondered, can this apply to a false perception of reality, where you're being fed evil thoughts and think it's normal? Yes, it does apply directly. In Descartes' framework, false perceptions are not limited to the senses. They also include judgments, beliefs, and habitual patterns of thought. In plain terms, if your senses can be deceived, your thoughts can be conditioned. If thoughts are repeatedly fed to you by culture, trauma, media, ideology, or habit, all those go back to, left-hand angels, the wicked angels, which, wicked, really, because they're righteous, but what's it called? Their only purpose is to, manifest wickedness with, our species, mankind. You don't really see, a cat out here, coming up with, "Oh, I am God." No, they don't, because we possess something else, metacognition, right? Which is a higher, mental, awareness, which it does vary within animals. Like you see how mice, they're really intelligent. Rats are really intelligent. Hell, it's been documented. Elephants can freaking paint. But we're the top of the list, right? Apex. And that's also biblical, right? It does make the mention in the scriptures how, we were given the breath of life, the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. How on the sixth day, we were given the image. Image means dominion, order. Laws do apply to that. The other apostle hardly make the mention how the understanding of, the foods to eat. That's an example of, that order and dominion. Right, so, we have logic, logos. From the Greek, it's logos. To the animal, and you got my cat right there. It's instinct, right? But with logos, you're out here thinking. I'm gonna search it up. How many thoughts does the average mind have? Okay, average amount of thoughts per day. Estimates for daily thoughts vary widely, with some studies suggesting around 6,000 to 70,000 thoughts. But recent research points to about 6,000 to 7,000 distinct thoughts, often linked to repetitive patterns, while older, unverified claims suggest up to 60,000, many of them negative and repetitive. What's important isn't just the quantity, but the quality and nature of these thoughts, as many are recurring, and much worry is baseless. So we have a lot of thoughts. Whereas an animal, they're more, linear, one-sided, right? More basic. Like, for my female cat, Athena, right now, she's sleeping. But see, the thing with cats, are like half asleep. She could be thinking about, what she experienced in her day. When she wakes up, she may just be chilling and she may feel like, I want food, I'm gonna go for food. Whereas man, taking the time to, philosophize, what do you call it? I don't know, doing this pose, like, I wonder this, I wonder that, So that's the distinction that we were given, right? We're able to, possess a higher, mental frame. I'm gonna digress back. What's it called? Your senses can be deceived, your thoughts can be conditioned. Therefore, the Lord uses left-hand angels to give you a perception that what you deem normal is is normal, but really it's wicked, right? So like an example can be. Yesterday I was watching that show Solar Opposites with Justin Roiland. I'm not a fan of that show off the bat. It kind of sucks, but because it's really forced and unfunny. Like the dialogue just sucks. Whereas Rick and Morty, it was flawless, right? The chemistry it flowed. But with Solar Opposites, it's too forced. It's just not it. But there was in one episode, you had like a lesser magician or whatever what they were called, and it was like making the mention, hey, we gotta kill that. We gotta kill the burn victim guy, the burn victim magician, because if he go through with this black hole, trick, we'll all lose our jobs from, being lesser magicians. And he made the mention, man, I want weed, I need the money, I love weed and prostitutes. And I was thinking, what a sad old life you must have if you out here, talking about you need money for weed and prostitutes, but dealing with harlots, I don't know if the Lord has historically done that. Weed, like, use it properly, you're smoking it though. That's not proper. Like, proper weed consumption would be, orally take it. Alright, and other methods that don't involve, inhaling vapors, because that damages the lungs. You're talking about, oh, it's all natural, Lord created it, First of all, you have no right to use, the Lord, no right to involve the Lord into it. Right? What's it? Now, the Lord created it, but don't use it as in He created, smoke. Yeah, He created smoking, but don't use it as in, oh, it's a righteous thing. It's not a righteous thing. The scriptures clearly state, not defile thy temple, not destroy your temple. Right? You don't see me out here, doing that crap, man. You don't see me sticking and poking, with the freaking needle and ink. You don't see me freaking smoking. You don't see me doing any of that. You don't see me consuming car battery acid, bro. Like, like most we get like GMO snacks here and there, bro. But I do try and eat clean. I just ate steak and eggs. I love steak. I digress though. So yeah, again, what's it called? The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. The Lord uses the heathen, as his tool to bring about destruction. Right? And it says the title is the Chastise Nation of Israel. Let's use more verses which, go into, the heathen getting out on Jake. Right, Proverbs 13 and 24. Right. Proverbs 13 and 24. I was really getting distracted, Salakia. But, it doth read, he that spareth his rod hateth the son. Right, but he that liveth him chasteneth him betimes. Right, and he that spares his rod, spare meaning to not, hit your son. Right, and that's the mentality of this new day and age of this Western, world. Is that what's it called? Chastising your son is considered abusive now. Right, and now they have like positive reinforcement parenting, whatever they call it. Like the way you do with pets, but there's a distinction. They work with pets. They don't work with the freaking human, bro. What's it called? The second you spare the rod, and the child will get to, envelop the idea that he can walk all over you. He can't walk all over you. You're the parent. You're supposed to establish order, ranking, jurisdiction, house rules. Say that you, you were the father. Obey, your father. Modern parents aren't doing that. They call that abuse and whatnot. Children call it abuse. In your secular institution, secular meaning not godly, right? Because most schools that make them mention, at the most, whipping your son or daughter in the buttocks, the fleshy part with with a sandal or a belt, that's abuse. It's secular because the moment it advocates against, chastising, it goes against the scriptures. Right. There are other scriptures emphasize, do chastise, but you don't see that nowadays. Right? We get demonized if we speak up against it. What's it called? Not your son ends up a woman, a so-called woman. Your son becomes an alphabet dude, bro. And whose fault is that? Yours, because you spared the rod. You didn't chastise him. You spared the rod. Or if your son walks all over you, he gets to rebel. And what then? There gets to a point where it leads to an altercation, and now you have to physically brawl him. He wants to fight you. He strikes you, and historically, what would be the case if your child strikes you, the parent? Capital punishment for the child. The scriptures clearly state to not strike your parents. And that's how brutal ancient world was, and the scriptures are. We're not here for no baby, no freaking, soft. We're not here to, sugarcoat shit, bro. We're here to lay it on, lay it simple. Right, but this is the book of the book of Exodus 21st chapter, verse 15. And he that smiteth his father or his mother shall be surely put to death. Surely. And the scriptures emphasize, what's it called? Honor your father and mother, right? Honor your parents. Another aspect, in a deeper sense, honor the Heavenly Father, man. That's your true parent, man. And go back to Ezekiel 8:4, right? What's it called? Soul, as a soul of the Father, soul the soul of the Son is mine. Hey, so I may biologically descend from my father, my earthly father. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm not really his son. I'm really Yahweh's father. I mean, son. He's my father. How great is that? How great is that? Being an Israelite, Yashar Allah, he Prince Power. Prince a keyword. Yeah, what's it called? Something like that, right? Prince is the son of a king. And time after like Psalms 10, he makes a mention how the Lord is the king. So obviously, if I be a prince and he be a king, I'm his son. Yeah, son of God's a classification. Yeah, son of God. How great is that? How great is that to hold the right? How great is that to hold the right to say, that is my dad. Yeah, I'm his son. Miraculous. I gotta get chills every time I think about that. Yeah, 'cause it's crazy. It's crazy, bro. I know. Yeah, I'm lucky. Skill issue. Skill issue for the heathen. I digress though. So like, I'm recovering from the flu, so I still have violent tendencies, coughing. Yeah, but if you spread the rod from your son, what's it called? He will, walk all over you. But yeah, if you do, there's a con to over chastising. Yeah, I hear what's it called? Beating your son almost to death for a little simple mess up. He will rebel. Know that about that. Right? Or he will end up worse. He will end up what's it called on drugs. I'm speaking, because I'm a second-hand witness. I've heard testimonies from various family members, regarding my paternal grandfather and my grandfather. And really, you shouldn't be airing out dirty laundry, but for an example, one of my uncles out here, he's a drug addict most of his life, and he loves the drugs. It's a coping mechanism and escapist, route. So that's an example, over chastising and just backfires. It's counterproductive. And what's it called? Really, you're not supposed to be like that. Either way. The scriptures go into how lead not your son in wrath, right? Ephesians 6th chapter. There has to be a balance, right? Respect and honor. Right, back when I was younger, yeah, I was, what's it called, talking back. What, Mom? No! But, now you're wise and older, especially with the scriptures, right? You have to just, hold back. But yeah, he that spread, the Lord don't spread the rod. You have to realize, he's on a whole freaking new level, bro. He's a spirit. The scriptures clearly state, the Lord is a spirit, and therefore you must worship him spirit and in truth. Therefore, the Lord be a spirit. He's a celestial parent. He is the most high spirit. The creator. The creator. If he is such, he is on a whole new level. He's not just gonna freaking, whip your buttocks, the fleshy part and call it a day. No. He's gonna freaking, what's it called, pull up the sleeves and be like, all right, dispatch, send judgment on him. Right? Send a boar to bite him. Send a leopard to bite his ass, bro. I want this guy to fall off a building or something. Lord, that's how crazy that's how grievous the Lord gets, bro. And as much as sending a whole group of people, a whole nation to get down on you. And that's happened historically, right? Going back to the colonization of the Americas. That's one of the, biggest contemporary, controversies of all, Yeah, Esau faced a lot of backlash for that, bro. And it makes him ashamed. Obadiah goes in, I made thee ashamed for thy brother's sake. Roughly paraphrase. I'm gonna pull that out. I'll pull that out. If I could find it. Oh yeah, I could find it. Verse 10. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. And you have various incidents here and there which emphasize that precept. I assure you, it's not as bad as it sounds. It sounds grievous. It's really not. I don't feel anything. But yeah, so this chastisement, the Lord's version of chastisement differs than that of the terrestrial man. He'll kill you. He can mercy kill you, bro. It's pretty chastisement, but don't mess with pops, bro. Don't mess with pops. You heard it from me, folks. Just don't mess with pops, bro. Because my dad will mess you up. But I want to end it off in the book of Deuteronomy, the 8th chapter, verse 19. Actually, verse 18, why not? But thou shalt remember the Lord thy power, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he swore unto thy fathers, as it is this day. And it shall be, if thou do at all forget the Lord thy power, and walk after other gods, and serve them, and worship them, I testify against you this day that ye shall surely perish. Perish meaning you get slew. As nations which the Lord destroyed before your face, which if you remember the history with Joshua, what had happened was that we kicked a lot of their butts, man. Hivites, Hittites, the whole nine, bro, the whole 9 yards. Because he would not be obedient to the voice of the Lord, their power. Right? But just as those nations were destroyed, we did get destroyed from time to time as a people. Right? Not wiped out fully. You can't wipe out people out. It's impossible. All things are possible with the Lord, but he said no, therefore it is impossible. Right? But yeah, just want to do a quick little lesson on, the Lord does use the heathen and the chaste as a nation of Israel, right? Because we are his children. There's a priest I want to pull out. I forgot, it was Malachi 1 through 2 or 3. They made the mention how, it was not Esau Jacob's brother. You gotta love Jacob, but I hated Esau. Well, the Lord loved us, right? So again, but he that loveth his son giveth him correction. So going back to Proverbs 13:24, going back to that verse, I don't think I ever read it. That clause being a part of a sentence. Right. I only read the first part, I reckon. It reads, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes. So the Lord using the heathen chastens the nation of Israel, whom he loves, yes. But again, because it's about love. And, very soon he's gonna, use Esau again, but because he knows he has but a short time, Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, right? Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and sea, For the devil is coming down into you with great wrath, for you know that yet but a short time. So the Lord's going to use Esau again, what's it called? One last stand to get down on the people. You know, that's where the concentration camps and all that stuff are going to come into play. Right? Be prepared. But I just want to do a lesson with that. What was edifying. To the next one, I'll do say shalom.